What's up, everybody? I'm Mckenty. This is my second channel, and this is your home for my Twitch highlights and my podcast. So if you like this and you want to see more of that and you want to join the live streams, there's a link to that in the description of this video. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. Eskimo Callboy, they have announced that they may be changing their name, and they've kind of apologized for some of their past lyrics. So they're sort of self-canceling. And I wanted to talk about that because, as I've said before, I am not a fan of cancel culture. I think cancel culture sucks. However, I think this is the right move to make for a couple reasons, which I will talk about. First, let me just read what they said. They announced this here on Instagram. Hey guys, the Hypa Hypa EP, we got the moves, and now Pump It reaching number 31 on the charts. What a year. While we continue to fiddle around in the studio, we are, of course, also reading all the comments on social. Thanks for all the support and encouragement, and thanks for the critical voices about our old lyrics, too. They feel less good, but they're just as important. Therefore, some real talk for a moment. The internet doesn't forget, not even the lyrics we wouldn't write today. We can't live without fun and irony, but of course there are limits to that. We apologize to anyone that we've discriminated or hurt with our lyrics. That was never our intent. That's why we are already in the midst of taking these songs offline. We are a tolerant and open-minded band and against any form of racism and exclusion. Our music should be as much fun for all of you as it is for us. But of course, you can still think we suck. Now it is time for Christmas. You treat yourselves with some proper holidays, and we will use the time to think about our name. Good ideas, welcome. What they have said is, we wrote some offensive songs in the past, and we're going to take those offline because they don't really reflect how we feel, and we realize those may have offended people. And they also said, we're going to use this time to think about our name. Good ideas are welcome. So you might be wondering, why would they do that? Well, first of all, their name, Eskimo Callboy. This band is German, and what they may not know is that, in fact, I would almost guarantee that they don't know, because they started in like 2011 or something like that, quite a while ago. And being from Germany, I guarantee you that they did not know that Eskimo is considered a slur to a lot of people that it refers to, which is the natives of Alaska, indigenous people of Alaska. From the Alaska Native Language Center, Inuit or Eskimo, which name to use, although the name Eskimo was commonly used in Alaska to refer to Inuit and Yupik people of the world, this usage is now considered unacceptable by many or even most Alaska natives, largely since it is a colonial name imposed by non-indigenous people. Alaska natives increasingly prefer to be known by the names they use in their own languages, such as, I'm not even going to try to say these because I'll say it wrong. But the point is, this term, Eskimo, is considered offensive to Alaska natives. I think they're making the right move by changing it. I'll explain why in a minute, but the second thing I want to talk about is their lyrics. I actually never really paid attention to their lyrics. I remember this band being around for a long time. The first song I noticed by theirs was Is Anyone Up, which is from like 2013 or something like that. I looked some of them up. This is from their EP. By the way, this is some extremely like peak 2010 scene artwork right here. This song, Monsieur Mustache versus Clit Cat, from the Eskimo Callboy EP from 2010. So 12 years ago. Backbeats on Saturday, whiskey instead of toothpaste, tonight would be so awesome. Okay, cocaine lies like snow on my mustache. Party MILF style now with Pam's comeback. All right, not so bad. Gay like a funky track. Gay like a homo F slur. Whoa, whoa, I drive drunken in my car. I have to fuck her so hard on backseat, dirty backseats in mom's car. We have a lot of parties. We're going to step out of line. We are gangsterified like black guys. Rubber ducky clusterfuck. Blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. So looking at this, clearly, you know, they're just being stupid, right? This is 12 years ago. I can't imagine that anybody actually thinks they were trying to be anything other than just edgy young Germans. I can't imagine anyone really thinks that they were racist or homophobic. I would bet that they don't really even understand what, at least back then, they probably didn't really even understand what this meant to Americans. And again, this is 2010. You know, you could say stuff like this in 2010 and it wasn't considered nearly as offensive as it is now. Like if you read or watch Aziz Ansari's second special, he talks about doing that movie, The Hangover. And there's a part where he says,
paging Dr.
And that movie is not from that long ago. It's from around that same time, right? And That's just a word that people said back then. So I don't think that these guys are, bad. I don't think they're racist or homophobic, but I do think that clearly times have changed. And the right thing to do is to acknowledge that and kind of go, all right, yeah, let's just go ahead and take that song offline. Because I can't imagine there's too many people who want to listen to this song in 2022 anyway. So I think that's the right thing to do. I also think it's the right thing to do to change their name, because this is an offensive word, like to a lot of people. Eskimo is an offensive word. And most importantly, it's an offensive word to the who it's used to describe. What I'm not so sympathetic to is when like straight white people decide to be offended on behalf of queer people or people of color or whatever. That annoys me. I think that's tiresome. I think that's virtue signaling and just people who want to get clout by telling other people like what words they can and can't use. But if you're using the word Eskimo and a Native Alaskan person says, hey, I don't really like that word, kind of offends me, you should stop using it, right? There is no reason to keep using it. It's the same thing as saying colored, like Negro, or any of these other like old-fashioned words that we used to use for black people that are no longer cool. Like if you said that word in 1950, you're not a bad person. But if you say it in 2022, it's not that cool, right? So I think this is the right thing to do just from sort of an ethical perspective. Another example of this that I thought was good was a few years ago, there was this indie rock band called Viet Cong who finally changed their name. After more than a year of completely justified public condemnation, the band Viet Cong has finally changed their horribly offensive name. For anyone who's not aware, the reason why this would be offensive to people such as, to me or my wife's family, they're from Vietnam. The Viet Cong are the communists who took over South Vietnam and tortured and killed, nobody knows, like hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people. So for people like her and her family, like her, my father-in-law was put in prison by the Viet Cong. I've seen the papers where they declared him a traitor, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law were put in a re-education camp by the Viet Cong. Very likely that they could have been killed. Fortunately, they weren't because they escaped the country, but they could have been. Now, I don't think that the people in the band, they probably just thought the word Viet Cong sounded cool. They gave a statement here where they pretty much said that. We were pretty naive and pretty ignorant on the subject, he says, apparently sincerely. They said, wow, we had no idea that this was actually a hurtful thing. Let's change our name. And I think that's what Eskimo Callboy is doing too. I also think it's the right thing to do from a career perspective, because it might literally be a hate crime to say that word in Canada. I don't know. I mean, Canada has some pretty strict laws about this stuff. At the very least, playing in Canada with this name would be a horrible, horrible idea. You definitely don't want to play a show in Alaska with that name, or you could get your ass beat for it, and justifiably so. It'd be like calling your band Negro Callboy, right? It's not cool. So as much as I dislike cancel culture and the allies who get offended on behalf of oppressed groups, so-called oppressed groups, I think this is the right thing to do. And I think their tone is the right way. They're not saying, oh, we were bad people, we're so awful and racist and shitty, rah, rah, rah. They're just saying, hey, we didn't know. Might be time to change our name, especially now that they are on a bigger stage. I think that this name would hold them back. So I think it's the right thing to do ethically, morally, and I think it's the right thing to do for their career. And to me, this is distinct from cancel culture. This is somebody just saying, hey, I said some dumb shit years ago that, I don't necessarily feel great about anymore. I take it back. And I would say the same thing. If you've read any of the stuff that I wrote back in 2010, I said a lot of dumb, offensive shit too. And I'm not proud of it. That's the reason why I deleted all of it. It's not because nobody was trying to cancel me. I just said, I read that stuff and I was like, wow, those were some dumb jokes on my part. I don't really stand for that anymore. I think I'm just going to delete this stuff because I don't feel good about this anymore. And I think that's the tone they have here. So I say, hats off to them. I think they did the right thing. Like how Rich Brian, yes, Rich Brian is another example of that. Rich Brian, the guy who had the song Dat Stick. So this kid, he was like 16 or 17 when he did this, and he's from Indonesia. This is in Indonesia, as you can probably tell. His original name was Rich Chiga because he's Asian and, a pun there. And he changed it to Rich Brian after being a 16-year-old from Indonesia, legitimately didn't understand that that was an offensive joke to a lot of people. And once people made him aware of that, he changed his name. And I think only the most uptight virtue signalers would give him a hard time about that now. And so I think that that's the way these sort of situations should resolve, right? Once the person addresses it, then everyone moves on. This is how it should work, as opposed to cancel culture. The people that continue trying to drag someone like this for a comment they made years ago when they didn't know any better, and they continue to fucking rake them over the coals. That's cancel culture. DJ Khaled used to go by the name DJ Arab Attack, and he was part of a group then named Terror Group or Terror Squad. Take a guess on when and why he changed it. Yeah, hi, I'm DJ Arab Attack from Terror Squad. Nice to meet you. I think they did a good job addressing the issue without prostrating themselves at Twitter's feet like Patton Oswalt did about Chappelle. That shit was fucking disgusting. To make a long story short, Patton Oswalt, who's been friends with Dave Chappelle for 34 years, he's another comedian, posted a picture of him and Dave Chappelle, and then like 2 days later, posted basically an apology for taking a picture not with Dave Chappelle because Chappelle, you know, isn't sufficiently woke. And it's just like, fuck off, man. Like, if you really fucking believed that, you wouldn't take a picture with them in the first place and you wouldn't still be friends with them. There's never going to be a scenario in which I'm going to fucking take a picture with, I don't know, Tim Lambesis, and then 2 days later be like, oh, sorry guys, I shouldn't have done that. There's never going to be such, like, I don't think Tim Lambesis is cool, and I'm not going to take my fucking picture with him. Period. End of story. That is like such transparent fucking backpedaling and pandering and virtue signaling that just makes me sick. I support Eskimo Callboy. I think they're doing the right thing. I am interested to see what's next for them, and I hope that the name change goes well for them.